Welcome to another life change transformation. This is episode 5, season 2, episode 5. It's going to be the third installment of A Hero's Journey. And we're going to talk about the finale of the Hero's Journey today. As always, I'm joined by Maeve Langford, all the way from Cork Island, blazing that trail, being that transformational coach for people, showing people how to live a life they absolutely love, and really truthfully living into the dreams and goals that they want with their lives and really making that change. It's always a privilege to be here with you, and I'm so blessed to have
Thank
this
you, Gary.
collaboration. Really am. My name is Gary Benoit. I'm a retired police officer for after 25 years working the front lines, and I am an author and a speaker. I'm licensed in the financial services industry. I wrote a book called A Call for Service, and so it's on Amazon, and we'd love to have you reach out and read that if you want to hear more about my story and see what brought me to where I am today, which is sitting here in front of you. And really, I'm zooming in from Saskatchewan, so it's the next province over. So I'm not even in my home province right now. I'm at my parents' place. So if the filming or the video is a little weird from my angle, it's because I'm not in the same location that I normally am. And but that's the greatest thing about what we get a chance to do is we can do this from anywhere in the world. And that's pretty special to be here and connecting with all of you across different countries that we're in touch with, and we love having you here. And so we really appreciate you guys, and I hope you're enjoying this. So part 3, Hero's Journey, the finale. What do you think?
Finale. Yeah. So this is where, you get to enjoy the spoils, right? And
Right,
and you sometimes they talk about returning with the elixir, right? So
right.
you've got that I guess that thing that often you didn't even know was part of the hero's journey anyway. I mean, sometimes there's a goal or an outcome we want to achieve, but it's this idea, the phrase we use is, it's who you become in the process, right? So
Mm-hmm.
that I guess that's the real magic is who we become. And if you think about it in the context of even the name of our podcast, life change transformation, it's that transformation piece,
Correct.
um, both of the self and of our results. So when we were talking about this, we were kind of saying it, just to remind people as we come into episode 3, we start with, there's the call to be, become, to do, to change something. Sometimes that call is, in our longings and discontent.
Yep,
Sometimes like there's the proverbial wake up call.
yep.
And then you get to choose, am I going to go on this journey or not? And we're assuming everybody here is saying yes, and you're on your
Mm-hmm.
journey, or you're willing to consider saying yes at least. And then
Mm-hmm.
we lean in, and there's the trials and the tribulations and the allies and the mentors and the support along the way, and as we keep going and we keep taking the step that we can take, we start to get a bit of traction,
Correct.
and we start to see the results that for a while maybe we've been just thinking of in terms of our vision and what we would love, but suddenly that now we're starting to see some growth and some traction, and maybe some results. So we're seeing the shift in our lives. And we were saying, Gary, there can be a point here where we can just like lose it all on one
Yes,
level.
yes.
So do you want to speak into that in
Yeah,
terms of staying going?
for sure. I love the discussion around this because and really the visualization around this I think is really important too. Like, you've just leaned in, right? You started to take those action steps, and you're starting to see some change. You're starting to see some results show up, and you think, man, this is good. And you get to a point sometimes, and sometimes it's very fast. Sometimes it's really fast. Sometimes it's a little bit longer. But then you think, oh, I'm doing this. I'm good. Right. And all the things that you were doing prior to that moment when you thought I'm good was getting you there. If you stop and you stop doing it, you stop doing those little things. Like, it could be, maybe it's daily journaling, maybe it's leaning into your structure of support, maybe it's, and ultimately, you think you're good, and then you carry on your own for a while without the things that got you to where you were, and you're experiencing those results, and then things start to sort of go back to that, pull back to the old
The
familiar,
old way.
right? Pull back to the old way. And so I just think it's really, really important in that moment when you recognize, when you have the awareness around the fact I'm getting traction, I'm getting results, that's when you need to double down,
Yeah.
right? It's like, you lean in just a little more, because in that moment, that's when you're probably the shakiest ultimately, right? Like you haven't really you've got some stuff figured out, but not all of it. And so you're like you're starting to step on more solid ice. You're not just jumping on ice pans across the water, right? It's starting to be more solid. But there's if you're not careful, you're going to come to a soft spot and fall back down to the familiar, right? And so
Yeah.
I think it's really, really important. And I use ice pans because I'm from Canada and that's just what it is. So I
That's okay. We get it.
but but I mean, like it's just that part where, you know, I think if it doesn't have to be like if it's coaching, if it's that's where my brain goes right away is if that it's that coaching piece, right? Like you've got someone who's supporting you. It may not be that person anymore. Maybe that person no longer serves you, or you don't want to work with that person anymore. That's fine. But find somebody or find
Yeah,
something,
find
right?
somebody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you had
I mean,
a good analogy before we talked about it,
yeah, we were talking, like if I think of, the likes of Weight Watchers, or Uni Slim, those are slimming classes. And, typically it's a weekly class and you go along and you're starting to get some results. And then you decide, I don't need the class anymore. And very quickly you're back to where you were. Or, the likes of Alcoholics Anonymous or Gamblers Anonymous. And again, they have that same structure that, we talk here, we learn through repetition, and it's coming to the cause, having the support, and coming to the group meetings in those instances.
hmm
And again, as soon as we kind of remove ourselves from the structure that has been empowering us to create the results, you're going to be on dodgier ground, no doubt. So it's not to say that we never change those structures of support. That's totally fine, of course. But make sure you have something, because I know for sure I've shared with those of you listening this idea from the Buddhists. They say before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water.
Yeah.
After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. So it's the practices, those
Yes.
daily practices that cause us, the journaling, the coaching, the reading of, uplifting literature, or listening to the podcasts, ours as well, I hope. That as I stay around that support, that insight, that information, I can continue to grow.
Yeah.
And I didn't mention her before we started today, Gary, but one of my great mentors is a woman called Mary Morrissey.
Mm-hmm.
And I can still remember being on a call with Mary, I guess it was 3 or 4 years ago. And it was her 72nd birthday. And she said, I am 50 years in the study of transformation
Mm-hmm.
on my birthday. And she said, I remain humble to all I still do not know or understand. And I think that's where the hero comes out in somebody, where
I
when
think so
you
too.
can say, like, I still have stuff to learn here, not because we're slow learners, right? But because we're always growing and expanding.
hmm
And if we want to grow, it's gonna come as an output of the growth in our understanding and our expansion, our awareness, our consciousness. So it's very hard for any of us to do that on our own.
I agree.
So
We live in that spiral
yes.
universe, right? Everything's spiral, DNA spiral. Everything we have, like, when you look at the way we think and our thought patterns, and you think about spiraling up, you think about a cone, right? As you start to spiral up and get that level of
Yeah.
awareness, it's an upside down traffic cone, right? So it's this way. Instead of a
Yeah.
pyramid, it's the other way. And really it's about as you expand and grow up. I mean, it's really an infinite growth essentially
Yes.
because we can only now I was telling you, so you can only see as far as you can see.
Yeah.
And so, I was in Sedona, I had that immersion retreat, and I was just really, in tune with my awareness and really trying to expand my knowledge. And I was doing this hike, and literally, like I think I probably mentioned it before, and it's a great analogy here again, but the path wasn't clearly marked. I knew kind of where it was, and so I was following it. And it wasn't until I got to certain points did the path reveal itself again to me.
Yeah.
And I think that in that moment, because I was in that awareness space, I utilized that in a way where it was showing me that my path is always going to be revealed to me if I continue to do the things that's got me to where I am.
Yeah.
Right. And I
Yeah.
won't see that potentially that next big step until I get to the end of what I'm doing here. And then it'll be revealed to me. And so it's no different in that hike. I would walk 30, 40 feet. I wouldn't know until I got up to that spot and I could see it. Oh, there it is. And I would take that next. that next step,
Exactly.
right? And so I think that's the
Exactly.
same in our lives. If we continue to do the little things that we've been doing, the chopping water and carrying wood every day, right? Right? You
Or chopping
well,
wood
chop
and
wood and
carrying
carrying
water.
water. You know what I'm saying? But like
Yeah.
doing those things
Yeah.
and getting it to that point. I mean, really, it's all about that and that
It is.
consistency, and then gratitude,
Yeah.
gratitude.
You come back to gratitude a lot. Me
I
too,
do.
right? It's so in harmony with
Mhm.
results, with becoming, with like anything any of us wants in our vision, gratitude is going to support that.
And if you have
Yeah.
gratitude, you also have a place of humility. And I love what Mary Morrissey says to you. She was humble to what she didn't know. And I, I, I've heard that story a couple times, but in this moment, it struck me differently again. Right,
Hmm.
being humble, right? So you have gratitude for all of the things of where the growth and where you're at. You got to celebrate that. Be happy, have that sense of like, yes, accomplishment and pride in what you've done, right? But and gratitude for where you're at and all the things you've learned, and then have some gratitude for all the things you don't know.
Yeah, yeah, there's still another adventure to be
Right.
had.
And then that's where that
Yeah.
humility piece comes in and you can really lean into that. So that's pretty cool. That's actually pretty cool.
Absolutely.
You know?
Absolutely. And it's so important to celebrate the results, right? Because, the human side of us on one level, I was talking about this with somebody during the week. I can't remember entirely the context, but we were kind of saying that on one level, everything feels impossible until you've done it. But the minute we've done it, it's kind of like, oh well, it's almost like we don't value it because now we've done it and it's on to the next thing. And that's a good thing to on to the next thing. That's answering the call to growth, but not without like harnessing the benefit of everything that you've achieved and learned, like you said, and,
Correct.
and celebrating what you've achieved and
Yeah.
learned. And I think we don't always do that very well. And I know for us as a family, we've made a very conscious effort to, whether it's a birthday celebration or an achievement celebration, end of exams for the boys in college or any of those kinds of things, new jobs. One of our boys got a new job recently. Like you want to celebrate those things because it's so easy to take them for granted. And taking stuff for granted is not the vibration you want to be
No,
on
no,
when you're on your hero's journey.
no. Because you're the hero of your own story. This is the whole thing, right? Like the hero's journey is not about anybody else's. This is your journey. This is your story. This is your steps to
Yeah.
take. It's your all the things you've gone through. Like so, all the listeners, when you're sitting here and you've decided to do something, and whatever journey that is for you as the listener here, like you reflect it. And so turn it back on yourself as you're sitting here. Look at all the things you've done to get to where you are.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that, we talk about reflection and we know that that's important. We've talked about celebrating our wins. We've had podcasts on those specific topics. Um, but we've really coupled it into this journey, like as a practical exercise for what you guys are doing. And it's a very practical illustration, right? The whole call to and all the stuff, the calling, the challenges, the mentors, the new action steps, and now the results, right? And I think, personalizing it is really important. And if you're not where you need to be, or you're feeling like you're not quite there and you haven't hit the results you want, that's okay, right?
Yeah,
Like,
and again, still look at how far you've come. Am I going to say,
correct.
well, I'm not there yet, or am I going to be able to say, I'm so glad of
Right.
I'm halfway there, which is halfway further than I was when I
Correct.
was setting out, right? So
Right.
celebrate how far you have come and set
And
your intention for the
right.
next
Right.
piece.
And
Yeah.
like, when I look back, like I was, we were having a conversation and we were looking at all the things, and I said, I couldn't dream the dream I have today 5 years ago. Right. That hence because I couldn't have seen the dream. I couldn't see that far ahead.
Yeah.
But I do remember. I'll never forget where I've come from in the steps I was taking and the things I did. It was in the very beginning for me. It was like a very much like a snail. There was no big quantum leaps in people like what I would consider a big step, but I got to consider it as a snail. Right. If I move 3 centimeters as a snail, that's a pretty big day for a snail.
Yeah, yeah,
Potentially, right?
true.
Right. So like
Yeah.
when I look at it from that perspective, it's like I did a lot of little things. I did them very consistently as much as I could. And I fell down a lot. I made mistakes. I still didn't do it perfectly because we're not doing this perfectly ever. Know that too. This is not about perfection. This is just about your progress. And where you're at is not who you are. It's just where you are. And you continue to take the steps to where you're going. So that's really, really cool. Right. So just be mindful that, wherever you're at in your journey, wherever you're at in your goals and whatever you've written down, just know it's coming for you. Just know, keep doing the things that have got you to where you are.
Yeah.
Right.
And Gary, just on the gratitude piece, I'm just thinking, like you guys had Thanksgiving recently.
We did.
So as you're listening today, any of you, just to think, like, what are the ways I could be celebrating my achievements, right? Imagine you've come around the spiral of growth, you're on your hero's journey, you've had a breakthrough moment. What are ways that you celebrate, Gary, in those moments?
Oh, yeah. So like really we do a lot of well, I do daily gratitudes anyway, like my daily moments, right, of gratitude. But in those moments, like when those bigger moments, when like Thanksgiving shows up and you have that moment to pause, essentially,
Yes.
um, and really it's I just look at I don't look at the necessarily the little things. I look at the overall achievement of what I feel like. How am I feeling today? Right? Because a lot of my problems was a lot of the things that I dealt with was mental health related. Right? I had a lot of PTSD and I had a lot of things that I was like I had a lot of insecurities and stuff in my own mind that was causing me a lot of poor decision. I'm so grateful for the way I feel when I wake up. Right? I
Yeah.
get up and I'm like, man, I feel so good. And I look at I look at the strength of my family and we just take that moment to pause. And it's just about, uh, you know, I literally take stock. I take a look around. I look at my son on the couch doing his stuff or up on typing on his computer or whatever. I just take a moment just to reflect and just stand there and sometimes I stare and they're like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm just reflecting. I'm just I'm just taking a moment to pause and just take a look and take it all in." Right.
Yeah.
And together, like we have celebration jars, right? We have a win jar that we go through,
Hmm.
especially if you feel a bit down, if you're feeling kind of like,
Yeah.
oh, then you go and you pull that out and you realize, oh, I remember that. Oh, I remember that. Because we tend to forget all the stuff that we've done.
Yeah.
Right. And
Yeah.
so it's just I just take a lot of time to pause and I do a lot of I do some meditation around that stuff as well. Like just the meditation of how far I've come and what I'm feeling like and just and that's really what I focus on is kind of that totality. And if I'm really stuck, then I'll go to the jars and I'll pull the individual wins out and be
Remind
like,
yourself.
remind myself where I've come from, right? And then
Yeah.
and I don't forget them and I read them. I'm like, and I go back and I've got some from years ago and I read those ones and I'm like, wow,
Yeah. Yeah.
wow.
Well, I'm going to add to that because I suppose in some respects that's the what you're talking about is when we've kind of achieved a degree of mastery in some respects. Like every day, this is just who I am, and I'm coming from this. Some of the celebratory things that we do as a family, like might just be a celebratory meal. Okay, so either one of us cooks that for the others, or I have to say one of my preferences, we go to like our favorite takeout or we go out for a meal together.
That's
But
awesome.
we say this is to celebrate X, whether it's a birthday or an achievement or that somebody's done good in some way. And for me personally, I love jewelry. So
Oh, nice.
oftentimes I will mark a really significant achievement. I'll buy something. And so, sometimes it could be cheap as chips, but it's just it
Hmm.
strikes a chord with me and it's like a memory. And every time I wear those items, whether earrings or brooch or necklace or whatever, it's like a reminder of that moment and that achievement. And it's one of the ways that I kind of capture the energy of it, I suppose.
Hmm.
Yeah.
You know, I never really thought about it in that way, but there's things that we get through our business too, right? We have a company and a business that works in the financial services industry, and there's a lot of celebrating wins along the way there. So
Sure.
there's like group chats for little things along the way that you can read back and see what people have done and what you've done. There's little awards that come around that really don't mean anything to anybody else, but in that moment for to see where you've come and what you've done, right? So they're all those like tangible can be tangible touch points if that's something that you love to have. So if
Yeah.
it's if it's jewelry, if it's whatever it is for you. Maybe it's collecting crystals.
Yeah.
Maybe it's
Yeah.
I don't know, whatever that might be for whoever's listening, because there's different ways to do this. So there's not
Exactly.
one way to do it.
No, exactly. And again, any of you listening today, if as a parent or as a leader, remembering this as well, to celebrate the achievements with your team or your kids or whatever, that if you teach and and you have students, like marking the milestones, it's so
Yeah.
important. It really is so important.
And, if you're doing it as a group, as a family, I think if I could recommend a book, Gary Chapman wrote the Five Love Language book, right? I think it's Gary Chapman.
Yes.
Yes. So just know, you guys, I have a language of love that is my own, but my wife's is very different than mine, and my son's is very different again. And so I
Yes, so
think,
there are five, Gary, we referenced this book quite a bit.
yeah,
So can you remember the five love
you know what?
languages? One is
Well, there's
kind gestures, isn't
like
it?
words of affirmation,
Words of affirmation.
like the physical touch, or like quality time,
Yeah.
gifts, like
Yes.
actual gifts, um, acts of service. So, like doing things around the home, or doing little things like that. And there's one more.
I can't think. Well, we'll look it up and we can I'll mention them at the end of the call.
The reason why I know those four is because those are the common ones themed throughout my family. Um,
Okay.
so I
Yes.
can't remember what that other one was, though. I wish I could remember off the top of my head. But obviously it didn't mean anything to me in the moment, so I just
Sure.
I just ignored it. But like in my family, so my wife is very much about what can, like, trying to do things for her, acts of service wise, right? So like, what can I do to lighten the load? That's really, really important for her,
Yes.
right? And so and she does, and as you grow too, as you grow together, those things may change, right? And so
Sure. Yeah.
um but like, just knowing that ahead of time, though, like having an idea ahead of time what that mixture is for people, because like ultimately, if someone's not a gift receiver, right?
Yeah.
And they don't love getting gifts, it doesn't resonate as an act of love, then buying them gifts doesn't necessarily do anything for you. It
Doesn't cut it.
maybe
No.
you love giving gifts, and that's amazing, right? Because you give gifts of they're personalized, and that makes you feel really good. But the person receiving may not be their love language, especially if it's like in a relationship or in a family unit. So just find out what
Yeah.
makes sense for them. Maybe like Aiden loves going golfing, spending time together, that quality time, hanging out,
Quality
right?
time.
Right,
Yeah.
that quality time piece, right? So like that part, whenever he asks to play guitar or he asks to go golfing, I'll never say no. I'll stop everything that I'm doing. I don't care what it is that I'm doing. I'll stop it and I'll go do that,
Okay.
right? Because I know that he cherishes that moment. If he's coming and asking, then I want to be there for him in that way. And I love doing those things anyway. I love golfing and playing the guitar. That's something I love to do, is for my own enjoyment. But it's so much more special to do it with him in that moment, because I know also too that he's getting older and he's going to move on to his own
Yeah.
life and have his own family, and those moments may
Sure.
not be as frequent as they are now, right? So
Sure.
taking
Sure.
advantage of the time that we do have, right? So I think that that's really special, and I'm talking about that it applies to the hero's journey, because that was part of for me to get to where I am. That was the big journey for me to this point, was to make my family unit
Yes.
stronger, to be there and show up differently for my family. And that is the result. To conquer that mountain that I saw as a mountain of where I had to come from is amazing. And I'm so grateful and so happy and so proud to say that I can drop stuff and do those things and spend that time. It's amazing.
It means everything, doesn't
Yeah.
it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So actually, we didn't plan to talk about Gary Chapman's work at all,
No, no,
but
we
it
did not.
brings us beautifully to what the culmination of the hero's journey is, in a
Yes.
way, which is who you become in the process,
Yes.
right? So for all of you, as you listen today, right, how have you changed? If you imagine like 2024 as a year of a hero's journey, or within it, you've taken a hero's journey in your health, or in your work, or in your relationships, or in your time freedom, your money freedom. You've been making some changes. So who have you become in the process? And oftentimes again we don't realize that we've changed because it can be so incremental and subtle as we're on this journey. Like it's not like we change overnight. It's just that over the weeks and the months of showing up and doing the work, and you, Gary, learning about the love languages and making those acts of service or spending that quality of time, suddenly you become a husband and a dad who shows up in
Yeah.
these new and different ways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you know, we talk about ripple effects, right? Like when you're becoming and you're starting to show up as that person you want to be, when you become whatever that person is, person in your vision, whoever, whatever that looks like for you, whatever that journey is, or no, you end up changing as a person. You grow as a person. You show up
Yeah.
differently. You have different, you see people differently, and you interact with people energetically. It's just different. You may not notice it right away, but you do. 100% you do. And you
Yeah.
just have no idea what ripple of effect you had on somebody else,
Yeah.
even in a small interaction. It's like dropping a pebble of water, pebble of into a steel pond, right? And you drop it down in the middle, and the ripples go out, and they go out right to the edge of the pond, essentially. But you can't see
Yeah.
there sometimes. And how far, how much what ripple have you caused in someone else's life?
Yeah.
And you don't even know.
And I often think of, the butterfly, they say a butterfly flapping its wings, is impacting and creating a tornado in the other side of the
Hmm.
world. Um, so as you're reflecting today, as you're listening to the hero's journey and thinking about, who have you become? And it's kind of like it's a new story about who you are and what's possible for you
Hmm.
in your life. Um, and as you go onwards to create new results, in our work, Ari and I, we talk about how you can't outperform your self-image, right?
Yeah.
But you can change it. And when you go on a hero's journey like this, and you've learned some things, and you've overcome some obstacles, and you've made some decisions, and you've started some new practices, and you're showing up in new ways, and you're creating some new results, you're not the person you were when you started out.
No, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%.
Nice. And I mean, for both of us in our own lives, we can see that, right? You're not who
Yes.
you were 5 years ago. I'm not who I was when I left my organization 9 years ago.
Correct.
Actually, it is, it would be 9 years tomorrow.
Look at
It
that.
was the
That's
15th of
amazing.
November. Yeah, the
It's
15th of
awesome.
November.
Awesome, right?
Yeah.
And so like I love
So,
that growth,
yeah.
right? And like the question I want to ask people, like as we come kind of near the end here, is what does your new normal look like? So look at you really consider
Yes.
what does this new normal look like for you right now? And then I want to ask what's next?
Yeah. Yeah.
What's
Yeah.
next? What are you moving into? What are you deciding to grow into? How are you going to show up differently and continue to grow and evolve as we talk about this upward spiral of transformation? Because really, that's ideally we love to see everybody and hear of you guys as you grow and transform. We love to hear if you guys are making those steps and changing and what's next for you, because there's always going to be something that's going to be calling to you. We
Mm.
just have to listen for it, I think, anyway.
Oh, for sure. Absolutely.
You know,
Absolutely. So I would literally encourage you to just like make a list, right? Like, what new insights have I had? What new ways of thinking or perspectives have I developed? Um, maybe there's a skill you had to learn, or there was a competency, a quality maybe you had to generate in yourself, whether that was self-compassion or whether that was persistence or confidence. Maybe we generate it as we
hmm
go, and we
hmm
develop it through competence, but now you have it, right? It can never be taken away.
No,
So really you want to harness those things for yourself, and then your self-image changes to somebody who you have a different image of yourself, Gary, as a dad and a husband. I have a different image of myself as an entrepreneur. I didn't even know I was going to be an entrepreneur. I just thought I was going to be a coach who worked for herself, right? So there's been a 9-year journey to become an entrepreneur. And of course, it makes sense that that was going to be part of it, but I hadn't really just understood that. Like you said, we don't know all of what it is we're going to
Yeah,
be taking on as we step
100%.
into our vision.
Correct. And like, I love that. Like, I love the fact that you've grown and you see yourself as that entrepreneur, that person who I love that
Yeah,
part of it. That part of your story is so, I love that piece of it. And I think that I just love that we can reflect enough and we've leaned in enough and we've decided enough
yeah,
repeatedly for ourselves, decided again for my dreams, decided again to grow.
yeah,
And as you continue to make those decisions, I mean, you just gotta, what would you love next? What's next for me? How, whatever that is, right? And it doesn't have to always feel logical. It just can feel on what does it look like for me? What do I really want here, right?
yeah,
And as you're deciding for yourself, as you decide to look at your growth in your own position, just, who do I need to work with? Who can I lean on
yeah.
to continue this,
Yeah.
right? Um,
Yeah, even to go back through the titles of the various episodes of the podcast from
mhm,
last year will start you again. What's the vision? What
mhm.
decision am I willing to commit? Taking the action, getting, mastermind support and
Hmm.
ideas around me. And it's the same process, right? I was just on a coaching call today with clients saying whether we want to create a button or we want to create a castle. I think it was Esther and Jerry Hicks or Abraham Hicks said it that way. The process is the same, right? The
Yes.
hero's journey is the same every time.
Yes.
And it's the hero's journey isn't one lifetime. It's several phases within our lifetime. And we get another call to adventure. And are we going to answer or not? Are we going to go? What do we want to create? And we go around this spiral of
Right.
growth every
Yeah.
time.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Awesome.
yeah. Maybe just to say as well as I said that, as we go around the spiral of growth, and if you're listening today and part of you is um feeling a wobble in any way, sometimes when we come around that spiral of growth, or if you're just back from maybe an immersion experience, or you've just had a big breakthrough in your job or in a relationship, or in your health goals or your financial goals, whatever it is, sometimes there can be this kind of wobble in the nervous system, and it's kind of like, will I be able to hold on to it, or will I be able to do it again? Can I hold this level of success and these new results? So really in that moment, it is just to know that that wobble is just your whole nervous system acclimatizing to, you use the phrase, the new normal.
Yeah.
So if you're having that experience as you're listening to us today, I would really say to just say to yourself, this is just me, acclimatizing, and these new results, this is my new normal. And even though we talk about celebrating it, it's not like, yeah, what mad, crazy, wobbly new normal. It's like steady state. This is it, done. This is my new self-image. This is
Yeah.
what I'm capable of, and I'm ready to go. I'm gonna steady state, and then I'm gonna go
Yeah.
for the next
Awesome.
level.
Awesome. Love it. Well, thank you guys for tuning in again for one of our episodes here. We appreciate all the support. We appreciate you guys continuing to come back here. Without you guys, we wouldn't be having as much success in this podcast because you guys had to listen for us to have success here. So that's pretty cool. And
This is it.
yeah, we really appreciate you guys. Maeve, as always, I appreciate you. Of course, you can connect with either of us on social media or through the podcast. You can just throw some comments in there, and I'll usually respond to those as timely as I can. And of course, it's at Maeve Langford for all of her stuff. It's at Gary Benoit for most of my stuff as I transition. And is there anything else you want to add before we finish up?
No, just to say that we really do pay attention. So, our next topic, which we'll share with you in the next episode, but that came about from somebody saying, I really think you should speak to this on
Mhm.
your podcast.
Yeah,
So, please know we are paying attention and we absolutely love hearing your ideas and your suggestions, and we will absolutely honor them and get to them. And in the meantime, just to say, keep going, right? You're doing
yeah,
great.
yeah,
Wherever you are on your hero's journey, just trust that there is a process here and I just need to keep working the process. And you know, I can read the hero's journey. I can listen to these 3 episodes. I can almost anticipate what,
yeah,
the struggles and the challenges are going to be every step of the way. And there is a strategy and a tool for overcoming it and just keep going.
yeah,
Keep
absolutely.
going.
Absolutely. Awesome.
Love
Great.
it.
Thank you guys. We're signing off for now. We'll see you guys in a couple of weeks. Thanks.